This season was supposed to be Lewis Hamilton's revenge season, after a controversial ending to last season in which an 8th world title was well within his grasp, until Max Verstappen and Red Bull surprised us all. But as we are one race away from the summer break, it is safe to say that Mercedes are way off from being title contenders this year. Or are they really? Does Mercedes have something up their sleeve for a big push during the second half of the season? And what is Lewis Hamilton's master plan to get back to the top? Well, let's talk about it then. But before we get started, consider subscribing to the channel as we upload 4 videos a week at the minimum, just to keep you updated on the latest happenings in the F1 space. Now that's out of the way, let's get into it. Many Mercedes fans expected the team to perform in France as well as they did at Silverstone, as both tracks have a smooth track surface that has proven to work in Mercedes' favor in the past. That, and along with a plethora of upgrades to their W13, specifically to the car's floor edge and front corner to help the car's cooling in a hot circuit like Paul Ricard. But by the end of the weekend in France, the team would be left baffled by how much they were way off Red Bull and Ferrari's pace, with Lewis Hamilton saying, "For whatever reason, we seem to be a lot further off this weekend." But the whole pack is, the 2 top teams are in their own league, really. In the last lap, the first sector is as quick, Hamilton said. Then we lose a lot down the straights, at least half a second. And then through that high-speed section again, they have less drag and more downforce in the corners. "I came here hoping we'd be within 0.3 seconds, Hamilton said, and then we could close that couple of tenths at the next race and be in the fight at Budapest. But if it's anything like this, it's going to be a while before we can win. But it's not impossible." Team boss Toto Wolff would also be as baffled as Lewis, saying, "We were slowly but surely working our way back to the front runners. There were good signs in Silverstone, and then we went to Austria, a track where we are usually not competitive at all, but we were close. Then we brought quite a nice update package to Paul Ricard. The track is smooth. Off we go, let's hunt them down. And we had no performance, like no performance. We can't figure out what went wrong. We experimented with rear wings, almost the biggest we have, Lewis described as driving parachute behind him this morning, to a smaller version which makes us lose too much speed in the corners. Then we experimented with tire temperatures. If you would have told me we were ending up 1.2 seconds off, Russell's deficit to pole, I would have said that's not possible." It's a bit of a slap in the face. To say that the team struggles during qualifying is a huge understatement at this point. On many qualifying sessions this season, the W13 would like a disaster of a car and concept, with it consistently being way off the pace of Red Bull and Ferrari, and like Paul Ricard, would at times get beaten by other teams in the midfield. Fans would bring this issue to Mercedes' attention, which the team would address in their French Grand Prix debrief video, with the team's motorsport strategy director, James Voll, saying, "Why are we a little bit more offset in free practice 1 and 2? Even qualifying, there's a large gap to the front, and we're more in the midfield with the McLaren, Lando Norris, out-qualifying George. But in the race, the car just seems to transform." It's a valid observation. It's one that's been there all year. It's not through necessarily design. We didn't plan to be that offset in qualifying. But the reality is, we'd much prefer to have the fast car we have at the moment. The race is over 50 plus laps, and having a car that is competitive on all those gives you opportunities. And we've typically been able to move back forward through the race into a strong position. That said, we'd obviously prefer to be more competitive in qualifying. There is going to be some tracks like Budapest that are going to cause us issues, and we need to make sure that we are really there or thereabouts to make sure that we don't have a number of other teams between ourselves and Ferrari and Red Bull. The next race will be at the Hungaroring circuit, which is a track that on paper the W13 should be awful at given the current setup. And whilst James would agree that the team will be at a disadvantage once the lights went out at Budapest, he would say that the team has a bigger and grander plan that involved a multitude of upgrades for the remaining races that have yet to come. In his words, "In terms of the upgrades themselves, yes, they are incremental steps. They're small steps that we're adding to the car, but the important point is that we have plans to introduce far more across the races that follow. We're not going to be able in one go to just catch up and be with Ferrari and Red Bull. But hopefully, as you've seen across the season so far, we are incrementally closing that gap down and we have more to come. We're realistic. We have made more steps forward and I can see progress, and we can see progress for how we are going to move forward again across the next few races. But in Budapest, we have to be more realistic. Where we're going with this car is a strong race car, but we may not be able to use all of it in the conditions that are presented to us, and we need to do a better job than we have been doing to make sure we're qualifying where the car should be, towards the front." At this point of the season, both Mercedes drivers aren't in contention to win the driver's title, and in the Constructors' Championship, the best the team can get out of this season is a second-place finish. And even that would be a stretch for most fans, since most of the team's podium finishes came at the expense of either Red Bull or Ferrari having to retire one or both of their cars. Team boss Toto Wolff would also admit to this after the race in France, saying, "Finishing second and third is great, and we scored some solid points in the championship, and it's encouraging that we are able to achieve those results on Sunday. But the truth is that if everyone finishes where they should, we would have finished third and fourth on a regular basis. It's simple. I think we lack performance on one lap and we lack performance on the first few laps of the race. We are working hard to close a gap that is still large. It's hard to fight for the Formula One World Championship title under these conditions. We see a 7-time world champion in a car that is not worthy of a world champion at the moment. He's giving everything he's got and making the most of this car. It's obvious that our two drivers are getting the most out of our car at the moment." Speaking of the 7-time world champion, Hamilton is currently 16 points behind his teammates George Russell in the driver's standings and 106 points behind his 2021 title rival Max Verstappen, who is looking like the clear winner for the title at this point. And as we're halfway through the season, the team and Hamilton's attention are more and more shifting towards the 2023 season and how the team can gain back its form and be a legitimate contender for the title. Hamilton would say, "We are constantly just learning more about this car. So everything I'm working on with, back at the factory, in the debriefs, trying to articulate how we are feeling in the car and the things we want for next year. Just with my time here over the years, I feel I know exactly what I want in the car for next year, that fundamentally things can't change, that are too big to change here with a cost cap this year. So I'm able to, ahead of time, say these are the things I want in next year's car. So those things I think are being taken into account. And whilst we continue to try and dial this car in, of course, bit by bit, as we go into these next weeks, the next couple of months, the full focus will probably be into next year's car." The team's head of trackside engineering, Andrew Chauvelin, would also say that the team already has one eye looking into the future, while they deal with the W13's problems, saying, "It's a gradual blend of resources into W13 drifting downwards and W14 drifting up," explained Chauvelin. "We need some clarity on the regulations, whether they will change before you'd make a really big shift, but every team will have started some work on next year. We must learn to know what we want to do for next year and try to get the car back to the front." And there you have it, guys. So what are your predictions for Mercedes at Hungary? Will they be a dreadful sight to see, or will they make do with what they have? And will Mercedes be back at the front next year? Let us know in the comment section below, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't.